Thank you.
I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Tinley Park to order. Please let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. If we can get a roll call. Lori, go ahead.
Commissioner Gaskell. Commissioner Gatto.
Present.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Here.
Chairman Gray.
Present. We do have a quorum present. Staff will move to communications. Are there any communications at this time?
No.
Okay. Move to the approval of the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 6, 2025
So moved.
Plan Commission? Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Okay. All those in favor of approving the March 6, 2025 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. The minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 1 on tonight's agenda. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Ramsey El Shafe of RE Development Solutions on behalf of Louisville Hotel Partners LLC 9 variations from the zoning ordinance for hotel lot size, items related to the urban design overlay parking, masonry, and building height for a new construction of a True by Hilton Hotel at 18303 LaGrange Road in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Site plan and architectural approval will also be considered. This was requested to be moved to the April 3rd, 2025 meeting. Can I just get a motion to continue to open the public hearing on April 3rd, 2025, to move it to that date?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Martinez and seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. So the public hearing for this item is moved to April 3rd, 2025. We will move on to item 2. Item 2 is a workshop.
Do we need, I don't care, but do we need to vote on that one to move it, or just the
Oh.
motion and the second moves it?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
you're right, I'm
voice
sorry.
vote.
All those in
Sorry.
favor say aye, just wanted a voice vote, sorry, good
Yeah.
call.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good catch, Commissioner Merrick. Okay, so it is, the motion is made and approved to move it to the April 3rd, 2025 Plan Commission meeting. With that, we will move on to item 2. It's a workshop to consider recommending that the village board grant Ramsey El Shafe of RE Development Solutions on behalf of Louisville Hotel Partners LLC 9 variations from the zoning ordinance for hotel lot size, items related to the urban design overlay, parking, masonry, and building height for new construction of a True by Hilton Hotel at 18303 LaGrange Road in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Site plan and architectural approval will also be considered. Staff, you want to make your presentation at this time?
Sure, so, this property, 18303 South LaGrange, is immediately south of the recently constructed gas and wash. Jumbo Crab is immediately south of the site. The 2 recently approved, or currently under construction Marriott hotels are immediately to the east. The site is 2.263 acres. It's currently undeveloped, and it's a dual frontage lot with frontage on both LaGrange and White Eagle Drive. The property was sold in 2021, 2022, I forget which year, but it was never legally subdivided when it was sold, so there was an issue for a long time with the owner or the legality of the subdivision for the property. That was dealt with when we did the plat approval for gas and wash, so now this is a legal buildable lot. The plan is for a 122-room hotel with an indoor swimming pool, conference room, business center, outdoor patio, breakfast service, fitness room, and a pet relief area. A hotel is permitted in the B3 zone on sites that are larger than 5 acres. As I mentioned, this is 2.263 acres, so less than half of the required size. Because of that, they're asking for a variation to permit a hotel on less than 5 acres. There's a lot of other variations as well. One being a height variation to allow 4-story building in the B3 district. The B3 district has a zone or a building height cap of 3 stories or 35 feet, so this well exceeds that. Bunch of variations related to the urban design overlay district. So the building as proposed is behind the build to line. And I'll go over these more in a second, so I'm just going through the list now. A variation to permit a building with a side entry in the UD1 overlay. A variation to permit a second curb cut in the UD1 overlay. Variation to allow decreased frontage composition in the UD1 overlay. Variation to eliminate the requirement for cross-access in the UD1 overlay. Variation to reduce the amount of required on-site parking. Variation to allow parking within the front parking setback in the UD1 overlay. Variation to allow parking within the side parking setback in the UD1 overlay. Variation to reduce the amount of masonry provided and increase the amount of EFS provided. And a variation to allow ground sign less than 10 feet from the front property line. They're also here for site plan and architectural approval. So here's the proposed site plan. As you can see, there's one-way traffic circulation through the parking lot, so vehicles will enter the property through that north driveway, circulate the building, or use the drop-off area that's closest to the building by the front door, and then exit through the southern driveway. We made sure with a truck turn exhibit that all of the corners have enough space for large vehicles like fire trucks to come through, fire trucks and delivery trucks to come through, as well as garbage. There's a detention basin planned on the western portion of the site, fronting LaGrange Road. That is not large enough to compensate for all of the storage needed on site, so there will be some form of underground detention as well. I have an annotated site plan to kind of explain some of the variations. So the blue arrows, and I'm sorry, I don't remember if anyone's colorblind, but sorry if you are. The blue arrows show the parking encroaching into the front parking setback and the side parking setback. In the UD1 overlay, parking must be at least 25 feet from the front lot line, and it must be at least 10 feet from the side lot line. So that's where those blue arrows are indicating. The green arrow indicates the side entry to the building, which is where the main entrance is. The UD1 overlay requires that entrances be oriented onto the street. This is somewhere in the ballpark of 80 feet away from the street. The orange arrow indicates the build-to line. So rather than having a front setback like the rest of the zoning ordinance, the UD1 overlay has a build-to line. It wants buildings between 0 and 20 feet from the street, and they're at about 28 feet. The red X in the back is where Gas and Wash proposed and provided space for a cross-access driveway that would connect the two sites. The UD1 overlay requires a connection in the rear between neighboring commercial properties because of the need for on-site stormwater detention. Using the cross-access as proposed isn't feasible. They need the stormwater more than they need the cross-access. The red circle indicates the location of the monument sign. It's at least 10 feet from the side property line, but it's between 1 and 2 feet from the front property line. the zoning ordinance requires that that be 10 feet setback from all property lines. And then the purple bar on the side with the green, the purple bar indicates the total lot width. The inner dots, the purple dots, show what the building width would be required to be by the urban design overlay. The frontage composition in the urban design overlay is a building must take up 1/3 of the frontage of the property. They're at something like 26 or 27% of the front property line, so they need a variation from that as well. Also, just a general note on the site plan, we worked with the petitioner to change the site plan to this one-way circulation with angled parking. Doing that allowed us to eliminate some retaining walls, which the village prefers to do to avoid any maintenance issues in the future. So that's why it's so close to why the whole site is kind of scooched north to that northern property line, and then there's like a 30-foot gap by the southern property line. And I think I touched, and then the yellow arrow indicates the second curb cut. You're only allowed one curb cut in the urban design overlay. So I think that because there's so many open items and I'm going through so much, it would be beneficial to have a discussion as we go rather than do the thing we normally do where I present and then wait till the end for comments and questions. So I'm going to throw the last graphic back up, and I think I'd like to discuss the appropriateness of the variation to permit a hotel on less than 5 acres, and then some of the variations in the urban design overlay.
Okay.
I just want to state too, the petitioners are here, so if you have any questions for them too.
Okay.
Just a workshop open, so
Fair
you can
enough.
ask them if we don't know the answer.
I do have a question right off the bat. I think you've been here before, Mr. El Shafi, right?
I have.
This is a workshop. If he comes in, we don't have to swear him in, but he could at least speak into the mic. So,
Yeah,
so one of the things I was looking at there's a lot of variations, and then some of these in the staff report show that the petitioner did not provide full justification or any justification for certain requests. But the one request the very first request, which is the size of the acreage of the lot, and I'm going to read this. The petitioner is requesting a variation from zoning ordinance section VB Schedule 1 to allow a hotel on a 2.263 acre site instead of the minimum size of 5 acres. The subject property is 2.737 acres smaller than the minimum lot size for a hotel in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Now, that's 55% smaller. But the reason then in the request is the petitioner states that this request is warranted because they already own the land and purchased it with the intention of building a hotel. I have a big problem with that statement because Tinley Park is not obligated to let anyone develop whatever they want just because they own the property or purchase the property. And as a engineer, projects I work when there's development, the potential purchaser of a property will do their due diligence and see if it can be even built there first. So help me understand why it's almost a circular argument. Because we have the property and we want to put a hotel, that's why it should be there. Help me clarify why you're requesting a variation. Was that when those properties were consolidated 2 years ago? Is that when you guys purchased it?
Sir?
Yeah, please.
For all that don't know me, I'm Ramsey El Shafi. I'm president of RE Development. And so that's a great question. First off, to answer, I think, portion of the question is we are a partner with the current owners. So we are coming into this project after this was already kind of partially developed. And so we're coming in to try to bring in some expertise and try to work with the existing landowner to try to work through the development plan. And when we look at Hilton specifically, one of their top brands is A True by Hilton, and they are kind of leaning towards a smaller room size. So they're not going for 200, 300 plus rooms. They're looking for smaller hotels with less room. And I mean, out of average in terms of land size that they're developing on and that they are putting their flag on, it's about 2.5 to 2 acres. And so this land site worked, and Hilton is the one that kind of says, here's a stamp of approval that this site works in a demographic, in a lot size to accommodate the size of the hotel, things of that nature. I understand your interpretation of how we may have responded, and maybe that's the wrong way to respond, or we put some information in there that we should have clarified a little bit differently.
Well, on first blush, I read that, I think I would never scope that out as a site that even meets the requirements. So I find it odd that we had 3 items and one of them was a public hearing for this, because in my mind, you're far away from that. You're very far away from that, in my mind. But that's just me. I will go to the other commissioners to see if they have any other comments, because I have a lot more comments too, on the building type, the architecture. There's a lot of things that are a big divide, and we're not even close. We're not even close. Commissioner Gatto, do you have any comments?
So I have a question. Out of all of the hotels that are in Tinley Park, is there any that are on the same lot size as this? Like over off of 183rd in Harlem? Because they're pretty close together over there, so I'm just wondering what,
So the background I can give on the 5-acre thing,
yeah.
it was amended, I'm not quite sure when it was amended. But we do have hotels on these smaller lots. We have some hotels on bigger lots, just depending on stormwater, depending on how big the hotel is, right? Because even hotel is clearly a lot larger.
Right.
The 5-acre rule came in as, I believe the village as a whole felt we were getting enough of the small to mid-sized hotels, the standard, run-of-the-mill hotel. So to put a 5-acre thing on there, they were hoping to get more 3, 4, 5-star hotels, trying to get more amenities, get a hotel with a restaurant in it, trying to get things like that. That was the basis behind, well, if you make it 5 acres, then we'll only get bigger hotels, right? It kind of works both ways. Sounds good on paper, makes sense. The available lots, the available space we have to put hotels on 5 acres.
We don't.
If another hotel comes and they want to renovate or do something on their lot, and we might have to take a look at that again to be like, well, is that fair? So I think the intention was to get a higher quality hotel. The fact of the matter is we do have non-conforming hotels that are on smaller lots because this was adopted after those were built.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Garrett. There's so many items on this list that I don't think that it's been discussed fully on what actually the village is looking for to put in this spot, and they haven't really adjusted much. So, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. There's just a lot of items, a lot on the agenda to go through to get it closer to what our standards are.
Well, so here's where we're really at with it. So there's a workshop, which is why there's still open items and things to discuss. The fact of the matter is a majority of the variances are for the UD1 overlay. So the UD1 overlay is a line drawn on our map and says everything south of this has to be like an urban design dreamland. If you've noticed, LaGrange isn't exactly the walkable, LaGrange and 80 isn't exactly a walkable towny feel, right? So for Gas and Wash, for the Marriotts, we've had to do some variations. Obviously, there's going to be some deep conversation about abolishing that entirely as, while good, again, good on paper as a concept, when real development comes and they want to build here, looking at the reality of the situation of things off of I-80 and LaGrange and Harlem might not be best for, while we want to add sidewalks, bike paths, and things like that internally, there's still auto-oriented design. This will be next to 4 other hotels, a gas station, other things. So the the overlay district is made to be a walkable community. And the variations for that typically don't align with that for this site. As staff, we have worked with them on some site plans they've had in the past. And we wouldn't have brought this forward if we didn't feel, while it's a laundry list, you can kind of think of it in this way. There's a variation request for the size of the lot, which is Garrett's already proven, which is a good discussion to have on whether or not we want to stick to our guns on the 5 acres or allow this to be a hotel if we think a hotel is a good use here. Number two, you can just think of all the variations to the UD1 kind of as a singular like blob of things
So-
that are restrictive, and the architecture would be the other variation they're asking for. And those are that's kind of how I would describe it.
Okay. So for the Marriott that's going, was that 5 acres?
I think it was
I
bigger
can look at it right now, actually.
because they have a large stormwater wetland area.
Okay.
And then there are 2 hotels as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I think the overall site was larger than the 10 that would be required, but
Okay,
that's from memory. I
okay.
I
don't
can look
know
it
for
up
sure.
right now, actually.
But like, and I understand your point, Jason, like my wife and I'll go to that Texas Roadhouse, they got a long wait, so we just kind of get out and walk around the perimeter of the hotel, but it's not very user-friendly in that. I understand that. I just look at, when you spec out a site, and I do a lot of jobs for doing phase one, one of our clients, which is a big client, does their due diligence, and they see if this is a best fit for this. They don't buy it, and then irrespective of what the town does, they find out, is this allowed? The other thing is like the architecture, 0% masonry, like, there's not even an attempt. I mean, I think you should have some sort of,
We can jump on that in a
but
second.
but I'm saying that has
If we don't
nothing to
think there
do
should
with,
be a hotel here,
that has
there's-
nothing to do
okay.
with,
Yeah.
with pedestrians. I'm just saying.
Sure.
True.
I'm just saying.
Sure.
So I understand the overlay aspect. It's a little clunky there, and it's true. You're putting it in an area off of the expressway or near the exit of the expressway. I get that. I think we agree on that. It's the other stuff that if you can't conform on certain stuff, I think there should be a good, honest effort to try to at least conform to the other stuff. Otherwise, what are we doing? What am I doing here reading this? I'm a rule follower by nature. Nobody else has to follow any rules. I mean, this to me, people come, make sure they can get something built, then they sell the property, or purchase a property. That's typically the protocol. So saying that you bought it, that you're obligated to build, I'm not, and that's in the staff report, I don't agree with that. So, that's where I stand on that. That's a hard stance. So, with that said, Commissioner Merrick, any comments?
So, I mean, you probably know what I'll say before I started, and I said this about Gas and Wash and the other hotels, which is that even though I know that LaGrange is a automobile-centered space, Orland Hills and Orland Park have managed to build bike paths and other things along those spaces. And I mentioned that for the Gas and Wash and the other ones that we're doing near the entertainment district. But if we start cordoning off entire areas that we don't want to eventually build into the walkability, bikeability, those sorts of things, then the community loses. So those are, I did want to hear and understand why you'd want to place something here that needs so many different adjustments to make it fit. And I'm willing to work through and talk about those. But the bigger piece about simply abandoning those pieces because it's in this space, rather than making a good faith effort to actually tie them into things that are already existing along LaGrange, and then trying to do that down 183rd and other spaces to connect the community, I think are important. And I will say, for the other spaces we're talking about building, which will also be difficult to do, but if we don't do it now, it'll make it so that in the future it'll be impossible, right? So those are my initial thoughts about big picture things.
I think overall, just in general, like you said with the Gas and Wash, there's not really much going along LaGrange Road. We did not make Gas and Wash do anything. It's a giant ditch that
I
IDOT
understand what's
controls.
there.
We did, you know, they are gonna put sidewalks connecting the south to the north, so we will have a connection all the way from Gas and Wash Marriott down all the way to Texas Roadhouse down, so that's good. I totally understand what you're saying there, and I think, the key point is kind of what you're saying is, True Hotel has a basic footprint. They don't really deviate, so when it came to, can you move this building up, there's some topography issues, can you make it wider? Right, well, no, this is how we build it. So that is a very key point to say, yes, like, can we reduce some of these? Can we change the layout to reduce the number of variations, which is up to you guys to discuss.
And then one item, and it was said in the staff report about awaiting the response from IDOT for the stormwater water facility. And if they don't get approval and they have to go underground method, I heard it was gonna be pipes, not storm traps, which is fine. But then we can connect that, right? From Gas and Wash, if that is going to be underground? I'm just asking
So
because,
that was the original plan. Bill Zaluski's here, who's the engineer. Probably last fall, we had a big engineering discussion.
yeah,
The way Gas and Wash, okay, the way the topography laid out on all this site is pretty special. And the way Gas and Wash, they wanted to move forward, they engineered their site separately as opposed to waiting for True and doing it together. That resulted in us saying, well, make a connection here. And then when True came in to build that connection, the topography was so far off, they're like, I'm gonna have to create a loop, you
okay,
know. with-
fair enough. I remember
Right, that's
they wanted to
kinda what
put,
They came into us and we
Right.
said, well, you can ask for the variation. We asked for it from Gas and Wash, it's there. But for this site, like,
understood, the
that's
grade.
that's the
grade, yeah.
request you're making. That's actually a topography, because it slopes off and goes down.
I remember they
So-
reversed the grade because they wanted to be closer to the corner
Correct.
versus taking the natural low point where you put a detention pond or
Which is
retention
where,
pond,
which
yeah.
is where the cross access would be.
Right,
But now it's a low point, so.
understood, okay. So fair enough, that might have sailed then, it sounds like. Okay, any other comments?
No.
Commissioner Hamilton?
It seems like the owners took a very big chance in beginning to develop the property when it was so far off from what the village requirements were. And I've got to believe that you must have investigated that a little bit before investing the money that you have so far, which some people like taking risks. But I would say, Jason, as far as the village staff is concerned, I'm getting the vibe, right, that the staff is pretty much okay with these. Otherwise, you would never have allowed it to get to this point.
I mean, we try and veer away from making recommendations or not. We would never bring something to you that hasn't been vetted. It doesn't mean we are gonna bring you winners every time, right? So it's your village, it's, you guys are the planning commission, the board is themselves. So we, the petitioner, and we get petitions all the time, right, that wanna go for a variation, and we do our best to get it in an understanding, so you guys all understand what's going on. And sometimes you vote down variations, and sometimes you accept them, right? We have worked this plan out with the petitioner to where we are presenting it to you in a way that, with the least amount of variations possible. That being said, there's still, 10 to 12 variations they're requesting. Whether or not, I think, we understand, I think for the most part as planners, that this is gonna be a little more audio-oriented. If the market says there's room for another hotel over there, I think in terms of the zoning and land uses over here, it's a decent use. In terms of, if it was a custom hotel, they probably could reduce the amount of variations, for sure. That being said, some of the variations, like for parking, as you guys know, our parking standards, so it's kind of a mixed bag, right? There's some stuff we know historically we need to fix, and we're hoping to fix in the next year or two with a rewrite. But there's also some things in here for the overlay district that they probably could try and do more, but it's up to you guys to really make those judgments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Stefasi?
this point, I mean, when you first mentioned the 5-acre thing, it was a glaring thing staring me in the face, but I get the concept of the smaller, more compact hotels, so at this point, I'm a little skeptical, I will say that, but I'm willing to listen to what else we have to go with here.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Martinez.
Kind of echoing what the other commissioners are saying. I do understand that you guys have a specific model that you're trying to put on this piece of property. So I'm not having too much heartburn with the lot size, but kind of what our chair was saying, I hope that you are willing to work with us on some of the other variations you guys are requesting. I think that will probably accommodate our feedback and, you know, make it worthwhile to the village board as well.
Okay. Fair enough. And I agree, the parking, 91 stalls versus 130, we know it's more of an art than a science from past studies. I did read in the report where it said that the occupancy for something like this is typically 65%. And therefore, you would, you know, expect about 79 of the proposed 91 parking spaces. So I know one of the other variations was the 4th floor. And I was just curious, if the occupancy is 65%, then what would be the need for a 4th floor? What would be the reasoning for more materials?
Well, yeah, and you built an expert.
I'm Jerry White with Superhost Hospitality, which will be the operators of the hotel. When we talk about 65%, we're looking at, that would be the people with cars or, you know, vehicles. And we find this across the area, and we presented some studies that we have done. For example, in Normal, we have a Home 2 there, right? Almost kind of the same situation in reference to the streets in the interstate. And we did a study on that. We find that we were roughly right around about 65 to 68% people driving to the hotel. Most of the others come through Uber or Lyft, and basically they're business people. They're flying into the area, and then they take the Uber to where they're at. So it's not what we, I guess in years ago, we called them tourists or transient people driving by and stopping. That's the reason. And Hilton in itself has reduced their thoughts on that, because they're finding that there are less and less people in the hotels that are driving to them.
Okay, and so I understand what you said, and I accept it. That's not how it reads in the staff report. So if you're saying it's 65% of the occupancy,
Yes.
will bring vehicles, and I agree. It is a little different now. You have Ubers and stuff. So, okay, thank you, Jerry. That does
And
clarify that.
I am rereading the
Sure.
Exhibit they provided. I misread it.
Okay.
It was talking about parking space occupancy, not hotel
Okay.
occupancy.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I misread.
I misread that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming up with the testimony, Jerry, and I appreciate your candor, Mike. Yes.
Question with that?
Yes. Go ahead.
How many employees will there be at the hotel at any one given time? How many parking spaces could be used up by employees?
Yeah, so that's in our exhibit and report as well. I believe we have 8 or 9 employees that would be on staff, and they work in shifts, so at any given moment, 8 or 9 employees would be the maximum.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in the total number of spots allocated.
Okay. Thank you. I was curious, this is more out of curiosity, one of these items mentioned that the permit, to permit a building beyond the build-to line, it's located 28 feet, 8 feet greater than the 20 feet, and you guys mentioned because of the elevation. I know there are elevation changes out there and unique topography, so I know that's true, but what's the different foundation you'd be going to that necessitates that? You said it would require a building with a different foundation. I'm a geotech engineer, so I deal with foundations. I'm just curious what.
That was me kind of summarizing what we discussed during a meeting about that build-to line thing. If the building were to shift eastward, then I believe a basement would be required, and that would be like useless space. Is that correct?
Not completely.
Not completely. Okay.
Bill Zaleski with
Yeah.
Advantage
Yeah,
Engineers.
Bill, go ahead.
This was quite the grading challenge. There's about 13 feet of fall from east to west. And we look for the sweet spot sort of to get that slab, that finished floor. If I keep pushing it to the east, the grade keeps rising up. I'd have to keep raising up the grade of the building. And the detention basin, going back to the connection, we would have had like a 10-foot retaining wall to make that transition at the far west end. So this was the best location. So when you come in the entrance, you're going down. And typically, we don't like to go down off the
Right.
street. We want to go up.
Correct.
We're going down. And in between the building and the right-of-way, we have a swale with a inlet to pick up the water that's basically trapped between the two of them. So if I keep moving it further, I'm gonna have to raise it up to get closer to the sidewalk elevation. There will be some unique designs at the foundation, because we were thinking that, well, if we'd almost have to move the entrance further west, because now we're getting too steep getting to the entrance, and we'd have to raise the concrete wall up to create a flat elevation.
And I get it, so it's not a specific, like, you may have to change, have a longer foundation wall, but the idea is, I agree with you for like grading, you want that sweet spot to minimize your cut and fills, to balance the site earthwork.
And we're filling a lot.
I get it, yeah, but you're right, it is not ideal to go down, because water seeks the lowest level, so you might be setting yourself up for some flooding conditions if you get some backup. But it sounds like you got the drainage, so hopefully it all works well. But, okay, that was out of curiosity there, so. And now I want to get to, I guess, the other item on here was the architecture. And it,
Here, real quick, because Michael has some slides
Sure.
on that to go over it.
yeah, sure.
If you want, he can go over it, and then we can kind of discuss it again.
Sure, yeah, please do, yeah.
Real quick, just because I pulled up Marriott, because you asked, they did receive a single variation for one of them to be on a 3.13 acre lot instead of 5.
Okay.
As a whole, on a rough calculation, both hotels are about 8.75 acres. So one of the hotels was on a 5, the other one is on a 3.3. They averaged out to about 4.25, 4.5.
Thanks. Thanks for looking
Thank
that
you,
up.
yeah,
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, go ahead, Michael.
Sure. Was there any, just real quick before I move on, anything else about the urban design overlay we want to talk about? I know we kind of got the hotel lot size pretty well discussed. Okay, I'll move on to architecture then. So this is the elevation provided by the applicant, the north elevation. So this is what you will see coming southbound on LaGrange or on White Eagle from the gas and wash site. I'm just gonna flip through the elevation, just because there's more to discuss at the end. But you'll note that the building height here proposed is about 53 feet. And as I mentioned, 35 feet is the max in the B3 zone, so that's another variation. Here's the south elevation, east and west. East is on the left, that's gonna be the side facing White Eagle Drive. So some things to note about the elevations. The applicant is proposing about for each facade, it roughly comes to 50% face brick and 50% EFIS. The EFIS is used in different locations in different manners. It's got different colors depending on where in the building it is. The True by Hilton Hotel sign at the top by that fin is kind of an architectural element. They carried the black banding through to kind of create more of a presence. Like I said, about half of it's masonry, half of it is EFIS. The multicolored motif is something worth mentioning too. The zoning ordinance does discourage attention getting colorful elements explicitly. When True originally came to us, these colors were highlighter yellow, highlighter blue. So these are much more muted than what was originally proposed. Blends in a lot better while still, sticking out in the way that they wanted to, I believe. And then here is the facade composition table. So for a building of this size, 60% of each facade has to be clad in face brick, and the remaining 25 to 40% of each facade has to be another approved masonry material, such as decorative cement block or stone or something like that. And then up to 15% can be accent materials like fiber cement board, EFIS, aluminum panels, things like that. So we don't have any approved masonry. We have EFIS instead, and they are still below the face brick requirement threshold. I've pulled up some, and here's the material board. I do have actual samples to show you. I'll pass out the colors so you can see that they are much more muted and earthy than what was originally proposed. And then I have two brick samples, the light brick and the dark brick. The dark brick has a little bit of like a glittery sheen to it. And I'll just hold these, so you don't have to.
There is a third brick color as
Oh, that's
well,
right,
but
the big brick,
the
yeah.
sample is a larger brick that I can get for you guys today.
Wow, look at those.
The giant one in a second.
It's heavy, I'm sorry.
No worries. And then this is the one that's going to be, I believe, the foundation mostly.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Much larger. Yellowy tone.
Okay.
Straight flush.
Because it says on the open items, I think the color scheme is, palatable, right? It looks good, colors look nice. They're not highlighter yellow, but they complement each other well, so it does look good. Thanks for those samples. But you were gonna show also, the surrounding, because you have it
I pulled up
summarized.
surrounding development. As you can see, most of what is going on is brick. Primarily, the gas and wash, convenience store, and car wash were completely brick. The Hilton Garden Inn, which is maybe 10 years old by now, could be older, is entirely brick. The courtyard that's immediately to the south is mostly brick and then has some fiber cement siding as well. And then the two Marriott hotels got variations, so they're about 50% face brick and 50% fiber cement board.
Okay, and that's the only one that has 50, most of these are either 100% or,
I would say
the
that-
restaurant was the mix of brick with some masonry.
Yeah, I would say that the courtyard is probably it probably is that 60% requirement,
Okay,
roughly.
okay.
So this would be the only building in the area that would have a predominant ephes facade.
Yeah, just, again, to clarify, because I have it pulled up here, the Marriott, their variation was not to reduce the amount of masonry, but to increase the amount of non-masonry material that's, we allow a 15%, not ephes, but I believe all the Marriott is concrete.
It's just fiber cement board.
Fiber cement panels. So they were just asking for an increase in, from 15% all the way up to get them. So they already had 60% brick, maybe more, and then they just didn't want to do like 85% brick. They want. So they did get a variation just to increase, but it was an approved material, not ephes.
Was there an attempt to try to see what the masonry percentage would be? I mean, or a design on this prior and some of the early ones? You mentioned the color.
Yeah, there's been a few iterations. I think the initial design we saw had less than what you're seeing now. There was a version that had, I believe, right at the 60% threshold, but the balance of the building was still ephes. And then now we're down to about 50-50.
Okay. I'm gonna ask the commissioners what their opinion on the architecture.
I'm gonna go back to that picture.
Yeah. Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, Mr. Alshaf.
So
Speak.
the reason we went with an ephes and not a cement board is because Hilton's prototype is actually all ephes generally. And they found that the material actually holds up better in terms of maintenance and long-term longevity of it. And they hold the paint color and the tone of what the hotel is trying to represent. And so that's why we're using an ephes material. It's really kind of a Hilton-driven brand standard that they have. And they just found that there's been a long kind of progress in ephes material over the last 5-10 years, and the products have really become a little bit better than they were previously, and that's why we're kind of presenting it as an ephes facade.
Okay. We'll begin with comments. Commissioner Hamilton, any opinion on the use, and did you want to bring up the, Commissioner Gatto, did you want the composition chart up there?
No, that, I
Oh,
want.
okay, you want this, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough, okay. Okay, any comment or opinion on the face brick, the zero masonry, or the, effectively 50% ephes?
It looks attractive to me, but I'm not known for my design savvy either.
I don't know if that's an endorsement.
That's good.
Okay.
Well done.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing, it's, you say that now we know these things last longer, but they've only developed them in the last 5 to 10 years. That sounds like kind of contradictory, right? How would you know they last longer if that technology's only come in the last 5 to 10 years? But I don't have a comment on the style of this. It looks like the color scheme looks okay, but it doesn't look like it matches up with the other buildings as much, right? And that's clear. So it's hard for me to imagine what that looks like with the other buildings there.
But yeah, and it's right next to gas and wash, so it's like it's tricky, right? Because then you keep going, you'll get to Texas Roadhouse, and yeah. Commissioner Gatto?
So the color scheme, I mean, I like that it doesn't have the lime green and everything else that I see typically from the side of the road. I see a true. I mean, I'm not sure if there's any place else you can add more brick or anything like that. And I don't know much about the materials that, like, I have no clue what holds up and what doesn't. I think we kind of look to you guys as, the planners to tell us what materials you think will withstand the Chicago weather over a long period of time so that it doesn't end up looking like shit in 20 years. So, I mean, I'm kind of going with like what you guys think. Other than that, I like the look of it. I mean, it's modern.
Yeah, and I can't speak to whether the masonry requirement in the zoning ordinance is a aesthetic component, or is it a building longevity
Right.
component? Because there are other materials that last a long time that aren't brick. But we have a kind of a legacy in Tinley Park of brick buildings. And so if the purpose of the conversation is EFS durable or not, you can argue that it's durable, and you can argue it's not sometimes, if it's not properly maintained. But the aesthetic component of the brick, is that the important reason why we have a masonry requirement in the zoning ordinance, or is it about construction materials? Because I would guess that it is the former, that it's about appearance.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if another way for them to add more brick to the building,
Well,
like the other buildings, if there is, I would love to see that.
I think you have other, in the actual report, this is, you had other mock-ups of different sides, because you do make a valid point, Commissioner Gatto, just looking at this, you're like, where would you put the brick? But that's the north elevation.
Right.
So if you're able to show the east, the west,
Sure,
the
and
south,
It is
'Cause-
kind of hard to tell, so like, on what you're seeing now, next to the fin, the top left of the building is brick.
Right.
Next to that, the gray, and then next to that, the blue,
Is
EFS. It could all be brick,
Yeah,
if that was the decision that gets made. Doesn't have to all be brick, but it could all be brick. Like, you could brick this whole building. You could even brick the the colorful motif that they have. You can use glazed face brick in those colors. I'm not making any recommendations. That's for you guys to do. Could the building be brick entirely? Yes.
I'd like to see the brick brought through and leave the gray how it is, and the blue and the gray how it is, and move all of that to a brick.
The gray sections?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
pull the brick directly through,
All the way to the blue?
all the way to the blue. Leave and you can leave the gray the way it is on where the true sign is and below.
Oh, I got you, the black.
Yep, the
check
black,
mark.
yep,
Okay.
I mean, I would say, just as you mentioned, Jason, everything else in there, I would say hit your minimum on your face brick. And then if, that will reduce your EFS, but I think if you can hit your minimum on the brick, that would be acceptable to me. Commissioner Sepisi.
This is definitely not cookie cutter. Sitting next to a gas and wash that is prominently red, I think it's a breath of fresh air. It's not there's no evidence of highlighter colors in it. And I think it might be a nice transition if we go back to the other properties that are there. It's not the same. It's unique. People are gonna see true, and they're gonna know which building it is. And I don't really have a lot of problem with it. I think it looks good.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez.
Kind of struggling with the EFS on, my preference would be all brick, but kind of understand that may be costly. But I agree with changing the gray EFS to brick, maybe even the blue EFS as well. I think that's a lot of branding that differs from the other hotels as well. If you can, do you mind going back to that slide really quickly? I think that these other hotel developments do not have that many of their branding colors on there. They're more so neutral. And I think at a minimum, maybe just those EFS panels that you have going, up and down the building with the different colors would, probably be my most comfortable part of the building when it comes to the branding colors. But I would like, it to be a little bit more neutral and take after some of these previous developments that were approved, so. That's my stance on the architecture. I think that EFS is kind of the cheap way out of doing some sort of masonry, so I think definitely I would like to stay strong on our masonry standard for that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I know we heard a little bit of both, but just for clarity, you were gonna say something, Jerry?
Yes, I thought I would just give you a little bit of a background in hotels. Every brand, whether it be a Marriott, a Hilton, an IHG, or a Choice, every model in there are 30 brands, everybody's got 30 brands under, like Hilton or Marriott and stuff. They all are distinctive, and the purpose that their interiors and their branding people do is that when you see this building, you know it's a Tru. Whether it's here, California, Florida, they're all going to be the same. About every 7 years, they change the style. And that's the reason I could tell you the Hilton Garden Inn there, that used to be, that brand was pretty much brick. Now, it's pretty much like everybody else. The other general trend right now is the grays. If you look at Candlewoods, Staybridges, our Hilton, our Home 2s, they're going to the grays. That's the popular color for hotels today. The Tru was, yes, you said, very bright colors, because the Tru was for the millennials. That was supposedly their hotel that they would go to. And they liked the bright colors and stuff. So that, I just want to give you that background so you understand when you see other hotels in the future why you're going to see certain styles. And it is true that that's an interesting use of the word. Tru has changed and muted their colors. The Fin used to be a bright blue, but there was a lot of pushback throughout the United States that it was too bright. You talk about lime green. You will find lime green on a Home 2. There's a big, huge stripe of lime green. And their beacon at the top is a lime green. The beacon is supposed to, their thing is to bring you home. You're coming home. So I just wanted to give you that background so that you can understand what some restraints that we have. If now if we were doing a non-brand hotel, we can do whatever we want. Or if you're doing a boutique, there are some brands in all the major brands that allow you to do whatever you want, but not in what we call this level of hotels.
But you mentioned it does kind of change every 7 years, right? Like, I mean, you have to, right? You have to change with the times a little bit, right? So whatever you built now, 7, 10 years, there'll be a different look to those type of buildings. Maybe similar, right? A nod to the old, but like you said, some colors may not be popular as they were back in the day.
Right.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd give you that.
I appreciate the backstory, yep. I just want to do, just for staff's benefit and the petitioner's benefit, I just want to do like a kind of a straw poll, hearing what we heard from the petitioner, what we heard from staff, and what we've heard from other commissioners. I'm going to set the bar as, this is how I'm going to ask, is, and I know a couple commissioners laid out like specifics of location, but just from a standpoint of hitting the minimum of 60% brick, and then the remainder could be, it looks like masonry is not even in the equation here, but hitting the minimum 60% and having something like 40% EFS as the remaining. As is, maybe I'll just do this. Are people okay with as is, what that percentages are, yay or nay? And if not, do you want to see a higher face brick? And I'd say, let's say to the maximum of 60. I know that's two questions, but who's okay with it as is, just a straw poll, informer for them?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, who would like to see a little more brick, at least near hitting the 60% target?
Yeah, me.
Okay, and Commissioner Sepisi, you're probably in the same camp as Hamilton, right?
I'm in the middle.
Oh, you're in the middle, okay, well, I mean, it gives you some clarification on what we're thinking, you know, Mr. El-Shafi and team, and the planning staff.
Can I ask another straw poll then?
Sure,
There's
absolutely.
two parts to it. So let's say they hit 60% brick, which meets our standard. The rest is supposed to be an approved, masonry product, which they're offering 0% of. Do we want to try and get them to use a different product, or do you feel the EFS will be fine?
Okay, let me try to,
Because in reality,
Right.
that's what Marriott got. They got a variation from the 15% to do concrete. They used an approved material though.
right, the
Whereas
fiberboard,
this
the
would be
fiber cement?
Approving a non-approved material for the rest of the building. So I just want to make sure that's clear. That's what the
Okay.
variation would be asking, that if they meet that brick minimum.
Because that's why I prefaced it as, I'm assuming that's off the table, but it's not off the table. So, raise your hand if you think any composition is okay without any masonry. Right now, it's at 0.
Clarification, Garrett. Isn't brick masonry? I'm a little confused by the terminology.
We have like a tiered hierarchy of masonry. So face brick is the 60% requirement. That's generally like what I passed around, the polished, smooth face brick. Masonry generally could be stone, it could be faux stone made of concrete. I think Jason's pulling it up right now to save me. And there's another kind of major one that I'm forgetting right now. I think is cement board one of them?
It's like block, masonry blocks.
Masonry block,
Yeah.
yeah, so the face brick is like the nicest, the smoothest brick. Then other types of masonry is 25 to 40%.
Architectural steel, stone, glass exposed.
That's the 15%.
Oh, that's the 50%. This is the outside then.
Yeah.
You're right. Sorry.
So right above that.
Right above that was masonry material or,
Yeah.
okay,
Masonry.
what you just defined, yes.
Okay, that helps me.
Okay, good clarification, though, because it is about like the
So
vernacular.
overall, if they came back and had 60%, let's just, 60% face brick, 15% stone, 15% EFS, there would be no
Well,
variation
it's
request.
got to add up to 100, right?
Sorry.
Yeah. that
In
is-
my head,
Yeah.
You're doing pretty good.
25, 15.
Yeah.
The rest of it-
25 with 15% EFS would require no variation request.
What-
So
what is-
the question is, do you want them to drop this variation request? Or, and let me just throw this out there, if they do 70% brick, is that a good faith effort to do then 30% EFS? It's just like a,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
I feel like the
I just want to give them
70%
direction on a pretty clear-cut way to go.
Commissioner Sepisi has a question.
EFS, it's not an approved surface for us? And can you
No
tell me
more than
why?
15% of the building may be EFS.
And can you tell me why?
It's in our code.
As
In
very
general, Commissioner Martinez referenced to it, in general, when these codes were being created, it's generally considered a lower-end product. And the whole point of our architectural standards and kind of the high-end things we're asking for are considered high-end finishes. You know, a fully brick home or a fully stone and brick facade looks better than stucco. That is in this region, right? As much as there's true hotels across the world, I'm sure in Arizona and New Mexico, they're not bricking 60%. You know, they're using whatever material is considered attractive out there. In Tinley, brick is considered the attractive material, EFISC is considered not so. Very similar, we had that house that was called Drive It, which is EFS.
Yeah.
And we made them change it because we have that standard.
Okay, so let's, there was two options I heard, so I'm gonna say just an informal poll. I'll start with the one that you said, if they went 70% brick, 0 masonry, and then 30% EFS, would people here be okay with that, if that was an option? I actually probably would be okay.
I would be okay
I
with
think
it.
I would.
I would be.
So she's against EFS, so that's okay, Commissioner Martinez is good, this is, we're trying to get some sort of,
Stick to your principle.
yeah, and then you didn't raise either.
To each their own.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yeah.
So, that's fine. Okay, so then the other option would be,
I do want the brick, but on the ephes or masonry, I'm not sure.
the other one would be coming completely in conformance. No variation, 60% brick, 25% masonry, and 15% EFS. I'm cool with that. That's, requires no
That's the
variation.
code.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah.
And with, with that option, or with the reduced option of 70/30, you have to consider when you're making the motion for approval of the variation, what is the hardship to, what is intrinsic to this property that made it so it couldn't be brick, couldn't comply with our standards?
Okay, that's a fair point. I would say, what would the petitioner say is the hardship on that? And this is, it's just complying, with the 60, 25, 15.
Yeah, so it's really just Hilton's prototype standards. Again, they kind of drive the bus on some of this. So even this design is a little bit off from what they would generally approve for the site. Usually they want a little bit brighter colors. They want a little bit more design elements that are to their tone and their design. And so we were trying to do a little bit of a give and push between the city and Hilton, what they would allow. And this is kind of that middle ground of what was needed. And also when you talk about the percentages that we have to hit, when you look at the east and west elevations, in order to have a good design concept, without having like a strange, just small strip going vertical or horizontal, that's why some of the percentages are a little bit lower. Otherwise, you're going to have a small, skinny strip going vertical in order to hit that 70% that you guys are referencing. Because you can see on like the blue on the east side, that's an EFS material, and on the left portion of that is all brick. If you were to shift the brick more to the right, you're just gonna, like I said, have a small vertical piece, or you're gonna have a horizontal piece at the very top that won't match the aesthetics of the rest of the elevations.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is the 70% would have odd patterns, and I can buy that. So the 70/30, in my estimation, would then be off the table. Then, in terms of what was the hardship to just meet the code of 60, 25, 15, there was no hardship, it was just a Hilton preference. There was no hardship, I heard, but it was a preference. So if the 70/30 is off, I would say then I'm just on board with not having a variation.
Yeah, no variation.
Yeah, right, because Michael is absolutely correct. We can't just willy-nilly say, well, okay.
Yeah, it's not a PUD, this is
Yeah.
base zoning, so.
So this, unless there's some sort of reasonable hardship, that's why in the beginning I was asking, so there was some absences of justification, and justification matters, right? There, what is the why, and whatever it is, then we can delve into and try to come to some common ground, but,
Can I just jump in here?
Yes.
real quickly?
Commissioner Martinez, go ahead.
Just echoing what Garrett says, that is not considered a land-related hardship. I get that the lot is smaller, but then again, it's a self-imposed, hardship that you're creating for yourself. And then these elevations, to me, for some reason, it's not screaming attractive with those materials, so I would not want to increase them. And I feel like there are a bunch of different materials that you can utilize other than EIFS. I would say split face block usually doesn't come out of my mouth as a suggestion, but you would be better with that than EIFS. So I guess there's just a lot of other things that we can look into before approving something like this.
Yeah, just to be clear, I mean, so the reason why it's hard to get additional face brick without it being really all face brick on the east and west, I mean, conceptually, it's not going to be very appealing because it's going to have to be primarily the face brick, kind of toned down to one or two colors. It's not going to match the other elevations that require some of this color tone and design elements. And again, I mean, this is not a Hilton is going to say, okay, this is Hilton saying, some of these elements are absolutely needed, otherwise they will not approve this type of design or product.
I would say then, if that's the case, then this site might not be a site for Hilton, if that's the deal breaker. I'm just saying, like, that's just an honest thing.
And it's all open
And it may
for
not
discussion.
be, right? I mean, if they can't, I'm not an architect, so that's a very aesthetic, our resident architect, Commissioner Manny, is out today, but he usually weighs in on the architecture. And I understand, like, you literally have to go back to the drawing board to see how that looks pattern-wise. I don't know if, without looking at it, if this is 50% or 53 or what was shown here, on here, in certain aspects, but it's 50%, raising 10% of that to brick, I think Commissioner Gatto had a good eye, where you put the strip across. I think that would raise it at 10% more, so you're at 60. But I'm not an architect, I'm just saying where it still would look good, and I think preserve the elements, the color scheme that's part of the branding, and not look like, another hotel in disguise. I don't think it would ruin the character of the building, but if Hilton has a hard line for that, then they might have to go to an adjacent town to look for a site that does just allow whatever materials Hilton dictates. But I'm just saying, like, that's not how the code reads, and so that's where I stand on that, and I think the commissioners.
Maybe I can jump in here too,
Yeah.
because it strikes me that we don't know exactly, you haven't gone back to Hilton to ask what they'd be willing to do or what your architects could put together to come. So it's possible you go back and find out that won't work, but you have something that gets us closer, and then it's a workshop, right? And then you bring that back, and then we're gonna be going through it again. So it's not like a hard line in the sand here, I don't think. It's go back, see what you can do, and then come back with good faith effort and see if there's some space. And then if the push comes to shove and we find it appealing, something that's in between the two, we can then see where we're at on our side, right?
Yeah, no,
Does that make
and thank
sense?
you, and we've gone through some iterations that obviously aren't put forward in front of you, but I agree. I mean, this is one that I think we can work on trying to find some alternatives to make sure it's appealing to all the residents here in Tinley Park.
Okay, I just want to make sure that staff and petitioner, did you get enough information for what you need on these open items? Was there something we had not addressed? I know there was some lighting and other stuff. I think lighting was fine, but,
Yeah, I'll let Michael finish up.
Okay,
And then
yeah.
maybe we can just discuss any opening items left.
Yeah, so all that's left is parking. We kind of already touched on it.
Yeah, can I ask a question though? So, I don't like oversized parking lots, and this place looks like it has about exactly the number of parking lots it would need, or parking spaces it would need for this. But I do know that, and I'm trying to picture the area, but that there's not a lot of overflow into other lots, because those other
Right.
lots over there are super full, which is
Yeah.
not usually the case when we have cross parking across spaces. So if there's some really big set of events and those hotels are all filled up and those restaurants are being used, there may be some concerns, and I don't know enough, and that's not usually something that I would raise, just only the concern about, I know we used to talk about Black Friday being the day that you measured parking, and that doesn't make sense anymore. But this area is heavily parked.
Yeah.
Versus some other spaces in Tinley. So, and I'm not claiming this is an issue, but I want to raise that as something to consider. And I'm not, I'm thinking about the crossover into the other spaces, but I don't think there is anything like, there's no other place to go, and it's kind of a meander for people if they have to park near the other hotels that are there,
So-
even though they're kind of connected-ish.
I can definitely say from a site plan work, this is about as many as we can get.
Okay,
It's why they're asking for a variation for front yard parking, because some of that dips in the front. It's why we requested a U shape and a one-way. The layout over there, we want to like limit the amount of interaction on White Eagle. So the petitioner actually made it a one-way. They slanted the parking, they squeezed out a couple more spaces that way. They were also able to get the trash enclosure in a good spot, and then they kind of pulled parking to the front a little bit. So they need that extra curb cut, and they need a little bit more in the front to try and make sure they have enough.
Okay.
That's kind of where those variations came from, because if you just like went down and back, and again, as Bill stated, if they push that building all the way up to the front, that raises the whole thing, and now you have a big retaining wall, you might be able to fit a couple spaces back there, but the U shape was the best form. Now, that being said, it's the best form for this true hotel,
Yeah.
right? If it was a smaller hotel, they might get another row of parking or things like that.
Okay.
But overall, with the study they gave us, with the occupancy rates, and again, if, Taylor Swift comes to Tinley Park, yeah, it's gonna be tough. Like, any parking spots in the
Good
hotel.
point.
This is how it's gonna
They
be.
have a
So, yeah,
when she's 90, maybe.
yeah.
Las Vegas.
But yes, so we'll definitely take your concern. We overall, because parking is, like you said, an art as opposed to a science, we're fairly positive with their studies that.
Okay.
And obviously, our zoning ordinance also states you have to provide enough parking on your lot. If at any point you don't,
You gotta go.
you gotta
Figure it
find a
out.
way to get it done.
Okay. Go ahead, Michael.
The last item, I think, let me double check.
Landscaping.
Yeah, landscaping. So overall, the site is pretty packed with landscaping. The only places that aren't landscaped are the middle of the parking lot and then the detention basin. The landscape buffer yard on the north is being proposed as 5 feet instead of 10 feet, which is what the landscape ordinance requires. And that's because this whole site shifted northward to avoid retaining walls. So that's the reason why that buffer yard is so narrow. It's also up against the pond for gas and wash, so it's not really buffering its neighbor. There's nothing there.
Right.
To the south, because the whole site shifted northward, there's this large space that's about 30 feet wide. The site overall is deficient in a few canopy trees and then a lot of shrubs. I don't know that it makes sense to just pack all that in here, but there is an opportunity to add space or to add some of the deficient plantings into this area. I also should have noted earlier, and I forgot, but just to the right of this green box here, they're proposing a pet relief area because it's a pet-friendly hotel, so there'll be like a little, I don't know if it's fenced or what it'll be, but just, that's where you take your dog. So that'll be nice to have right off the sidewalk instead of, when I've been traveling across country with the dog, I'm like walking up a berm with the dog at night. So this is, a nice addition, making good use of the space that they had since the site plan shifted. So that's kind of all I have.
I just wanted to jump into on the east side, again, with that UD1 overlay, you're supposed to have your building facing White Eagle Drive here, and that's supposed to be the front, which is why you're supposed to have a certain width. Again, and this is actually pretty common of all hotels, not just True, but they're side loaders, right? It's auto-oriented, you want your car come in, drop people off. That's also a number one thing, we wanted the one-way, so nobody was doing U-turns, and then like getting dropped off in their Uber and then flying around. But they did add a lot of landscaping on the east side and some trees, because we were asking for some facade improvements. At least we understand it's not gonna be the front of the building, but can you give us some scenery here? And so they added those 3 trees, they added an extra garden bed, they added a lot of annual flowers and things like that along White Eagle Drive. So if we're talking about, where we already came to some agreements, they are going to try and make that a little more beautiful.
And they've done, in terms of the perennial plantings, they've gone, we don't require any, and they have flowers planted throughout the site, so.
I'm okay with the landscaping. I don't think that is not a deal breaker. I think that's a tricky site for that, right? And I think it works. It should be screened enough, like you said, there's a detention pond as a neighbor.
Mhm.
I mean,
Now, the last item is signage. The signs,
Can I add on about the landscape?
oh, sure, sorry.
I guess what is the reason for not following staff's suggestion on adding those plantings to where there's an opportunity to?
Just to clarify, you're talking about the south portion, right?
I think they're open to it, we just, it's a
Yeah.
workshop.
I think we're open to it, but also you have the same, a pretty high landscaping standard on the other portion of the property line. So if you actually double up or add a lot of extra trees, they're gonna actually compete against the trees on the south property. I think that's Texas Roadhouse. So having a large tree landscaping requirement on both sides of the property line just makes it to where it seems that it's a little bit more redundant. And then also we need some areas to push some snow because the site is pretty tight, especially on the north side and on the east side. We need a little bit of extra areas of green space to stack some of that snow.
I know there's a grading issue, Bill mentioned that, if that detention is not there and you got underground pipes for storage, would you be able to push it to that area that's dedicated as detention right now? I'm asking, I don't know, it might not be with the grade, because I know.
So that would actually go even more against what your zoning ordinances are regarding the front setbacks and part of that urban, maybe Jason or Michael, you guys can touch on that.
Are you just talking about landscaping?
I'm talking about snow. You mentioned
Oh,
snow.
I'm sorry. I thought you.
Because if there's a deficiency here, it's so that it can make it up. And I understand, you do have to put snow somewhere. But I'm saying, if you don't have that detention pond, then there's this area there. I don't know the grade, I don't know how flat, I don't know how feasible it'd be to push it that direction rather than some directions where there's sparser trees. That's all I'm saying.
I understood as shifting the building,
No.
not as.
No, don't,
yeah.
I have no problem with configuration.
Yes, that is definitely a possibility if that is a circumstance that the detention area changes.
And do you know, I know it's not in your control once you hand them the process for approval, but is there a timetable when you will know approximately what the latest for, what, if that is approved or not?
From IDOT.
Yeah, Bill, do you want to touch on that?
I had a conversation yesterday with IDOT, and the intention was not go to IDOT because we're not going to touch the right-of-way. However, because of the setback requirement, Robinson Engineering said we want to make sure that that's going to be an acceptable setback. I did talk to IDOT. They said, we want you to make a submittal to us, and we want to see what you're going to do, and they will review and they will approve, which will then keep us moving forward with Robinson. So
Okay.
I think we're set with IDOT now.
Okay, so you think the detention will be a reality, and I'm not
Oh, yes.
holding your hand to the fire, okay, fair enough. So then that wouldn't be, so I didn't mean to usurp Commissioner Martinez's question. Her question was about why not to meet the minimum. So thank you, Bill. Mr. El-Shafi, I kind of,
No, that was helpful.
Okay.
I just am still struggling with the laundry list of variations requested, and I think if there's an opportunity to meet the code, I would suggest doing that, so That's kind of my stance on the landscaping as well.
Understood. We'll look at the deficit and see where there's areas for improvement.
And if it
And-
ruins the other trees, you know, I'm not a tree killer, so.
Yeah, the primary deficit, if I'm not mistaken, is on the shrubs and bushes. I think there's only a few trees missing,
Yeah.
maybe 3, I believe, on that portion of the property. I'd have to look at the details, but it's the shrubbery that it's gonna be lost. You're not gonna see it on the site from either major streets, and then it's the back of the building. It's not necessarily the front entrance as well. So that's sort of why we did it heavy on the north side and not as much on the south side.
I would just see, you know, I'm not dead set on the south side. I would just see, you know, where you could add those
Yeah.
and maybe work with staff on that.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, and I will echo something Commissioner Martinez says. If you're able to reduce some of these variations from 9 to a much lower number, I think that's a good faith effort to help your cause. I think you make a fair point. If it's doable, do it, right? So I think that's sound.
I appreciate that.
Okay, Michael, so thank you again.
Okay, the second to last item is signage. The petitioner is proposing 3 signs. One is on the fin element of the building, on the northeast corner of the building. That's gonna be at the fourth story height. And then they have 1 ground sign proposed. Ground sign and the wall sign comply with the zoning ordinance. They have another sign near the patio entrance on the other side of the building. That one also complies, so there's no signage issues in terms of size or size, yeah. But there is the issue that I mentioned when we went over in the site plan comments, that the monument sign is between 1 and 2 feet from the front property line, and that's required to be 10 feet from the property line. Perhaps that's due to the parking lot placement. I can ask the petitioner to speak on that. But the ground sign, you can't even see it on this one because of the landscape planting.
Yeah, I
but
can
it's at
see
the-
it, yeah.
It's at the top right corner.
And it says proposed sign if you look closely,
Yes.
on the top right. It's a rectangle.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough to make it to where it's at the entrance of the site, and not set back to where you can't visibly see it. I mean, this is just feasibility of where it is, and we're still almost 30 feet off of the street, although that's not our property line. We're set back pretty far from the actual street curb.
Did you do a vision triangle for people coming in off of that curb cut with that sign? Is there no issues?
That's a good question. No issue? Okay.
Yeah, no, we measured it. It's, cause it's got that big, because you're already 30 feet away from the front, like, you're out of the triangle.
And it's the entrance.
Right, that's the other great part about it being a one-way circulation around the lot is you're not gonna have someone who's only looking left when they're trying to turn left and missing the person walking right in front of their car, like what happens to me in front of Village Hall. Yeah,
So you're saying that middle would not be doable to put it in the middle? Is that what you guys are saying? Because it's one way?
Yeah, so if you put it, most of the traffic's gonna come from north coming south.
you
Yeah.
just might miss
If
the
you put it
driveway.
after the entrance driveway, yeah.
I'm with you, and I
Yeah.
know, I understand shifting it this way to get for the detention pond. I know it's close, but I think everything shifts, right? I mean, otherwise,
And to be clear,
otherwise you're knocking off.
the sign is 2 feet from the sidewalk, not from the side property line. It's the correct distance from the side property line, but it's only 1 to 2 feet off the sidewalk. So it's that eastern property line that it's close
Oh,
to.
yeah, eastern, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, again, okay. As, the straw pole on the sign, being 2 feet from the eastern property line, Are people okay with that? I'm okay with
I'm
that.
okay with it.
I think that's not an issue. Okay.
Okay. And that's it.
Is that all?
Final minutes are. So right now, we have a public hearing scheduled for April 3rd. We'll work with the petitioner to get any revisions quickly and hopefully make that meeting.
Okay, well, Mr. Al-Shafi and your team, I appreciate your time here today, and working with us in this process. And staff, thank you for all your information and your good reports. And we'll see you guys in a couple weeks, so good luck. Hopefully, we'll see some changes that, and hopefully there was some direction here that gives you some clarity.
Thank you for your time.
Yep,
Appreciate it.
yep.
You guys can head out.
Okay, so we will move on to item number 3, which is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant John Chedek of Burnham Nationwide, Inc., on behalf of Richard DiPolito of Brixmore, Iowa, Tinley Park Plaza, LLC, and Fifth Third Bank, a special use for a substantial deviation to the Tinley Park Plaza PUD, with exceptions to the village zoning ordinance to allow construction of a new Fifth Third Bank with drive-through service at a proposed outlet parcel for the property located at 16061 Harlem Avenue in the B2 PD Community Shopping Tinley Park Plaza zoning district. Site plan and / architectural approval will also be considered at the meeting.
Yeah.
May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepisi. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Martinez. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I have received certification that the public hearing notice was published in a local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. So at this time, staff, if you could please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this property is located as part of the Tinley Park Plaza, which, as we're all well aware, is one of our major commercial corridors here in Tinley Park, on the east side of Harlem, south of 159th, north of 163rd. So my presentation will be similar to what you saw in the staff report. Here up on the screen, I show that whole plaza in a dashed red outline. The proposed project is for new construction of a Fifth Third Bank. So that would be a new outlot, which you can see in yellow. And just a quick background about the whole plaza. So there have been renovations. It's an older plaza, and over the course of time, there have been additions, a north outlot, a south outlot. Brixmore Property Group had purchased the property some time ago, and in 2020, a phase development happened, and that was phase 1, the northern part, and then phase 2 came to us in 2023, the southern part. So what you can see here is on the map, the northern part of the inline shopping center is what I would be calling phase 1. The southern part is phase 2. Our property is in phase 2. So as far as this property, the subject property would be a 0.66 acre parcel in the parking lot of that southern portion. So this slide kind of explains to the effect of what I just mentioned about how the redevelopment has been phased over the last several years. That redevelopment was really modernizing the facade improvements and providing parking lot reconfiguration, going from angled parking to a 90-degree type of parking, landscape improvements. There was a portion that was like at the end of the phase 1, top of the phase 2, that was demolished. And when they came in for phase 2, They infilled that to reconnect the whole center. So you can see here, I have a couple of snapshots up on screen from that Phase 2 approval. So those are some renderings. Of course, as we all know, construction has happened, so we have many tenants that are in there. And to the right here was one of the options that was approved. The plan was approved with two options. For that Phase 2 parking lot to be all parking, but then a second option was to have a conceptual outlot building placed there. So you can see what that looked like at that time. The tenant user was unknown, and it had two drive-throughs. As far as zoning, the zoning is surrounding is really commercial, 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 commercial. The map that I show up here, this is something that staff has previously had in the past that shows the different tenants. So of course, Amazon, Ross, Five Below, these are some of the major newer tenants, along with many other active tenants in the center. And then of course, our parcel is dashed in red, so north being to the left. The proposed use would be this outlot being developed into a Fifth Third bank, and that would be generally in alignment with the conceptual approval, but it's not in substantial conformance. So in 2023, we said it must be in substantial conformance, otherwise it would have to come back for a special use for substantial deviation to the PUD. The building is slightly larger, about 300 square feet larger. There is a third drive-through lane, whereas the conceptual approval only had two. And some parking configuration has changed, the drive aisles and stalls. So as I said, this thus requires it to go to Plan Commission and to Village Board for that special use for substantial deviation and site plan architecture landscaping approval. So PUDs, they inherently provide some flexibility, so relief we would consider as exceptions to the PUD, not so much as variations. So up on screen are many exceptions that we've identified as noted in the staff report. One of the ones that may be reminiscent from the Brixmor's previous redevelopments was the drive aisle widths. So they were approved to 24 feet instead of 26 feet. Our village engineer is one of the many staff members that have looked at this project proposal, and he wanted to clarify that the new approval would be to exclude the width of the gutters. So we have that as a new called out exception. Then we have parking. Parking ratios were defined in the previous PUD entitlements, and then there's no loading space for this subject property, so we have that, as well as some other ones you may expect. This all will be one legal lot of record, so we'll have additional principal structure, and then just reiterating the additional freestanding ground sign, and exterior alternate building materials, as well as a relatively minor signage requirement that from the wall sign, its location to the edge of the wall. So the site plan north is up on this. Harlem is to the left. The inline center is to the right. So as I mentioned, the proposal would be to have this as part of one lot of record. So this would just be a parcel division. We've had other projects come in the past that have requested this before. So this is not entirely new to the village. So we would just have multiple principal structures in this case. The building, as you can see, is surrounded by the drive aisle to the east, and then the entrance to the drive-throughs would be from the north, and then just wrap around in a clockwise manner. The pochade area south of the building would be the canopy where the service area would be, and access to the site for vehicles would be internal. So they would come in off the drive access that's immediately north of this, and then circulate along the length of the drive aisle to come in, or if they're already in the shopping center, of course, they can come in. So staff does not have any concerns with spillover into the right-of-way. Fire department has looked at this. We've had input from them as to making sure fire access can go through. So a 20-foot fire access lane has been included at the lower left. That's the southwest corner. And the pedestrian connectivity, we wanted to see that as well. So you can see those pochade on the upper left. There's an accessible stall just to the north of the building, and then we have accessible connection to Harlem Avenue as well. So building official has looked at this, so detectable warnings, and all of that is taken into account. As far as access for service for staff, there is a walk. The building's main entrance is to the northwest. You will see on the right side and east of the building, there's a surface walkway there as well. As far as utilities, so our village engineer had requested if there was any plat of easement information, if there's anything new or proposed. Nothing new was proposed, but village engineering will allow any separate easement approvals to come separately. So as far as the utilities that have been proposed, the only thing that would relate to the site plan that I'd like to point out is the site plan does show on the lower left, on the left side of where that fire access lane is, there's a couple of rectangles that are not identified. There's no legend. They're simply underground water meters. And the village engineer has already requested that the petitioner relocate those. So again, that's just an underground type of thing. As far as the conditions, so this would be subject to final engineering approval and special use approval. And bollards, they're the underground meters that I just told you about. That location plan has a few of them there, so we would just say, of course, to remove those bollards as well. Landscaping, so the petitioner, staff feels they did a good job with being able to provide the canopy trees on the west and east of the sidewalk, as well as in the landscape parking areas. There's very little deficiency as far as canopy tree coverage is concerned. On that southern island, right where I have that big green arrow, there's a transformer there, and our code would have required 4 trees there, but we have to make the utilities work, right? So otherwise, the site is pretty completely full of where we could have good tree placement. The plantings, there's like a little bit of what would be a little bit of a gap by removing the location of those underground meters. So that's something that the petitioner, of course, can easily work with staff to shift some of these shrubs and things at that southwest corner. As far as the ground sign, they do show it ghosted as an image on the plan, but the Fifth Third Bank petitioning team has said that that is not part of their proposal. Of course, any ground sign that would come in they'd need to make sure that it meets the planting requirements that goes around the sign. As far as that transformer, there's one thing that staff does want to add for Plan Commission's consideration, I put as a condition, is around the transformer. We've worked with our village landscape architect to see if there's good screening options that are drought and salt tolerant. So we went back and forth on a couple of iterations with the petitioner's team, and the village would like to recommend what you see up on screen here as well as in the staff report. So simply it's a handful of grow low sumacs with the surrounding of overdam featherweed grass. As far as the architecture for the building, up here are the 4 elevations. So you can see that the composition of the materials, we do have sufficient face brick on this, so no exception required there. You can see I've circled a couple of areas which are some alternate building materials I'll get to in a moment. But as far as the construction of the building, it's a contemporary design. Staff feels that it goes with the rest of the character of the PUD that we have with behind it, being the inline shopping center. So we have just a very simple building with mostly brick, some canopies, and some other elements that I will now get into. So the modular brick is a slate gray. The alternate building materials, of which code requires a maximum of 15%, are two things. One, thank you, Jason. One is what was proposed as Alcoa Architectural Rain-A-Bond aluminum composite panels. These are called ACM panels. So it's the three that Jason has there. He's distributing, so they would be the three colors, green, blue, and a charcoal gray. And then EFIS would be in a Dover gray material, which would be that square right there. Yeah, that flat square. And then, of course, standard storefront glazing system. And then last out of those would be the stone veneer. So I can,
I'll get it.
okay, I'll just clarify to you, Jason. The first one will be the small one. The small one that Jason's going to hand out is the one that was sent to staff and staff ran with the understanding of what's proposed. The petitioner did bring another type of stone sample, so it would be either or. So you can see the scale of it is a lot bigger, and the base of it has a lot more contour. Yeah, I mean, you would just pick the one up, not both of them. So that could be up for discussion if wished. Staff feels that the originally much smaller submitted material with the flatter face goes well with the brick, but of course we have an alternate here. So exception to the code would be for, we do the 15% calculation at maximum by each facade. So they are over on 3 of the 4 facades. The one that they have 0 of those materials would be what's considered the rear, which would be facing the east side, which would be facing the inline center. As far as if anyone wants to know, my staff report had those numbers, which are up on the screen, where I just combined the two. The elevations that the petitioner submitted did break those down. The one that had the most EFIS would be the west side, where that was 14%, or with a percentage after that, 14 point something percent with the ACM 10, roughly. And the condition that staff has on here is actually coming back to bollards. So we would typically like to see neutral color bollards.
Lori, sorry to interrupt. I just want clarification. The way I read the report and what's on the screen, you just said 14% of some change, but it's 15% maximum. So I see like approximately 10% maximum, 10% overage on the south and the north, and just about 7 on the south and the west, and 7% overage on the north, or unless I heard.
I am combining the two materials.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So EFIS and ACM is not called out exactly in our code, but we have what's similar to an architectural steel.
Okay.
And we say like we're similar, so I was combining both of them.
Right. Apologies.
Staff report was all together. So yeah, bollards, we would be okay with a dark blue as far as what staff feels. So we've added that as a condition, neutral color or dark blue. Now there's a number of bollards because of the protection for the canopy columns and the equipment there. The 2 of the drive-through lanes are VAT tube service and 1 is an ATM. So we would like to see a horseshoe design at least on the ones that protect the columns. We're okay with standard the protection of the equipment. Signage, so this is a sign location plan that part of the team had provided. There's a lot of signs here, but trust me, most of them are directional. So it's really, as far as the building is concerned, there are signs on each of the 4, which we do allow. And as far as the rest of it, the sign package was pretty extensive, right? They're getting close to, if not already at, permit level. So there was hours addressing, temporary signs, all of that. I've checked with our zoning administrator, and when those come in, we will, for temporary signs, for example, we will have maximum periods of time that those things can be displayed. Now, logos, we want to make sure that those are not included. So the signage condition that you see below, it is kind of long, but it's to help point out some of those salient details about what we can or cannot approve, right? So again, no logos, we want the signage to meet code. Now, there was a zoning ordinance that is related to the PUD with signage. I did reference that as well. As far as the directional signage, I did note specifically which of those signs in that sign packet were identified there. Now, there's one difference. I'm not sure if you folks caught it from the slides here. I did mention it in the report, was that the color of the signage is not exactly matching. It's close, but the font and color of the wall signs are different. But the signage that you see here would be actually what's proposed. Parking. So staff has worked with the petitioner's team to be clear, that's Fifth Third Bank and the property ownership Brixmore Group, to be able to have a consensus and have everybody on the same page as far as what the parking needs would be for the site. So the staff did not require, for example, a third-party professional parking analysis. There were concerns back in 2023 when we didn't know if this would be a restaurant or some other high-demand use for parking and vehicle queuing and that sort of thing. But what they've provided does not deviate terribly much from previous approvals, but I just wanted to be able to show you guys the numbers and just to make sure we're understanding, because this does affect the whole plaza, phase 2 as well as the plaza as a whole. So first, for code, the banks do require in our zoning code 1 stall for every 200 square feet of floor area, plus 1 stall per 2 employees. And then drive-ins to provide 6 stacking spaces per customer service area. Stacking spaces, they meet easily by code. Now, the parking code, it has a heavy requirement for what I just read about the square footage and the employees. I worked with the petitioner's team to get that maximum employee count, which is up to 16 employees. So if we were to just run the numbers purely by the code, this bank would require 32 stalls. Now, the whole development is generally on a shared parking. Now, the petitioner team that I have here is the architect that's representing Fifth Third, as well as one of the representatives for the property ownership, Brixmore Group. So if needed, they could speak more to the nature of the request and how it may affect the plaza. But overall, we have been running with parking ratios and parking stall counts based on those previous approvals. So in 2023, we went from, by changing that angle to angle parking to right angle parking, we went from increasing the parking in that phase 2 area from 617 to 650. Now, we had a conceptual outlot option, which would bump it down to 591. So what they have proposed is Within that bank parcel, they're proposing 13 stalls. The petitioner's team did mention to me before that, of course, they may be able to utilize some other parts of the site outside of that parcel. Now, the number with this outlot, with its slightly bigger footprint, would make that Phase 2 area, instead of being 591, it would make it down to 549. So 42 stalls less than the previous approval. This is a table that you would have seen in the staff report. The bottom 2 rows would show how the parking ratio numbers work from the area of just Phase 2 versus the whole of the plaza. So, you know, the ratios are a little bit less, but overall the parking here, you can see it does show that it's trying to efficiently use the space as much as possible, right? It's, you know, the further spaces from the inline center, so utilizing that frontage along Harlem. And, you know, the drop in the ratio it's not a drastic drop. Here you can see these are same, the left 2 images are the same as what I showed you before, just giving you a comparison of that conceptual one, previously approved on the top, and the currently proposed. And then to the right is a staff analysis of the previously approved option without that conceptual lot. So the currently proposed is 42 stalls less than the conceptual outlot, and 101 less than the option without the outlot. The last I have is lighting. So up here is the photometric as well as the fixture specifications. So they've provided building canopy lights, wall pack lighting, as well as 5 new proposed site lights. There is a 6th light that was previously approved that would be to the north of the building. The photometric here does show that lighting accounted for as well. Now, property lines, parcel lines, they weren't identified here, but staff looked at where the location of those would be with respect to the other elements on the plan, and they all meet our code requirement, which is a maximum of 2.0 foot candles. So as far as the site lights themselves, I did not see a mounting height proposed, but we do have previous exception allowance for light poles to be up to 40 feet in the PUD. This does provide some flexibility for the petitioner, especially if there are any overhead utilities or anything else that needs to be accounted for. But you know, we would like to note that any changes that they make wouldn't be able to otherwise exceed the code and to substantially conform with what we have here today. That concludes my presentation. I have the standards up on screen, sure. And I have, with the Fifth Third Architecture team, I have Andrew Lehman here, and from Property Ownership, Rich DiPolito with Brixmor.
Okay, does the petitioner have anything to add? This time I can swear you in before you speak.
Good evening, I'm Rich DiPolito with Brixmor.
Okay, Rich, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please proceed.
Well, first of all, thank you all very much for having us here tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. Excuse me. Tinley Park Plaza is a treasured asset of ours, and it's one of several that we have in the Chicago area. Chicago is one of our core markets. We are actually based in New York, but we have a large presence here in Chicago. We have a big office up by O'Hare. So we bought Tinley Park Plaza with the intention of redeveloping it. It has been our intention and continues to be that we'll keep this. It's what we consider a core asset, and it's in our portfolio of Chicago properties. So we've invested a lot in it, and we really appreciate the partnership with the city. So the city has been very helpful with us. The staff has been fantastic, and it's been a great experience all around. And we're really pleased with the outcome of the redevelopment. Both phases have really come out really great. So we're excited about it. Hopefully you are as well. We think it's really made a huge difference from what was there previously. And we're bringing some, what we believe are some really good quality tenants. So we're continuing to upgrade our tenancy there, and I think with the look of the shopping center, we'll continue to do so as some of our older tenants find other homes and places to go. We'll continue to upgrade that quality. So we do have some more tenants in the works, nothing I can share right now, but we do have some fun stuff coming your way. So, and the first one is this one, Fifth Third Bank. I think they're a great operation. They'd be a really good addition to the center and to the community. Certainly, they provide a lot of great service to the community, and we're really pleased that they're willing to come here. A couple things about this. So the layout of this is really in substantially consistent with our vision for the shopping center. As was pointed out earlier, we had always intended to do an out parcel here. We didn't know who that was going to be. It had various folks taking a look at it. We made our best guess of what that could look like when we came in, but ultimately we didn't even. We built the shopping center and redid the parking lot even without assuming that the out parcel would come. And of course, as soon as we got it done, then we got to deal with Fifth Third. So now we're reworking it a little bit, and that's okay. But it is very consistent with what we had planned on. It's allowable in all our leases, so we've planned for having an out parcel there all along. One of the things that was mentioned is the parking. The parking for the entire shopping center, including this parcel, is non-exclusive, so anybody can park anywhere. So the bank patrons can park, they can park closer up. They can go to Ross and then walk down and go to the bank, and vice versa. Doesn't really matter where people park here, and that is well known throughout the center. The parking at this, even with the out parcel, actually the ratio is better here, even with the out parcel, than it was when we originally bought the center. So even though the parking ratios have fluctuated over time as we've made some changes, we still have plenty of parking. All of the parking exceeds actually the requirements within our leases, and we have no concern whatsoever with the amount of parking. We're real pleased with the architecture of the building. We think it fits in well with the shopping center. There was mention of the EIFS. I just want to clarify that we're not more than 15% on any one, or they're not more than 15% on any one side for EIFS alone. Now, I know there's the alternate material, the metal material, which I think is actually a pretty attractive material. So hopefully you think so as well. But that being said, the Fifth Third has our full support for this, and we're excited about them coming. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them now, or I'll take a seat and let Fifth Third's architect give you a little bit more information.
Okay. I would say go ahead, Gloria.
Did we swear him in before he?
Yes.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I did. With that, I would just say, hang tight, so, because I'm sure they'll ask you questions. Commissioner Martinez, if you have any questions?
I guess most of my concerns lie with parking and loading. I guess just with the way that the trash enclosure and then potentially trucks kind of with the loading aspect. I'm just curious, where do you anticipate that movement happen?
If it's okay, I will let the architect speak to that, since he's been working on all of that.
I will have to swear him in, so, sir, if you can state your name and raise your right hand.
Andrew Lehman.
Andrew, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
First, I'm not a licensed architect. I've been doing architecture for, 20-some years, but I work with the BHDP who does do Fifth Third.
Okay.
So, just full disclosure.
Sure.
So one, there are no trucks making deliveries here. So there's no real need for a loading area. Two, the garbage is gonna be like residential sized totes. So, and it's on the aisle there, so pretty easy to pull up, get the totes, put them in the garbage truck, and be on their way.
I just want to make sure, so the aisle is
On the
that-
east side.
Yeah, the east side, okay, I see,
Yep.
right next to the, yeah, okay, fair enough.
I guess, I think as planners, we typically hear that there wouldn't be trucks unloading.
Mhm.
However, there's often, you know, Chase sometimes get their water delivered and it's in a semi truck. So I'm just trying to think forward. I know that right now we don't
Sure.
anticipate it,
As,
but
as far as I know, they don't have water delivered. They have taps, and I think they have a water filter system in the building
Yep.
for
I
the
guess
drinking
just-
water, so.
just food for thought
You're
for
gonna
the
get
other commissioners.
An armored truck that's gonna come at some point.
And
True.
Paper, toiletries, things like that will get
Yeah.
delivered.
Yeah,
Box trucks.
Okay.
obviously
Yeah,
armored
small trucks.
I'm
Okay.
sure they'll pull right up to the front door.
So are they
Um,
gonna be maybe idling in the drive aisles there?
that's actually a great question. I would assume they might idle there for a few minutes.
Yeah.
I
looking
would
for
say,
it.
so
Yeah.
overall, just to touch too, there are two different ways to get in. So even if a truck's idling, the more northern, you can still get in and get into the thing. We actually had to move the garbage enclosure. Originally, it was under the canopy on the south end. We moved it to the east end, one, because then we don't have to screen it. It's in the back, not facing anything, and two, because it's not like a huge front, like, it can just pull up, get it and go, just like at a residential house. So, as a planning staff, we felt that was a little easier. You make a good point about the loading and unloading. Obviously, we don't anticipate any semis, but you make a good point that that doesn't mean that won't happen ever.
I mean, and these days, office supplies mostly get delivered by Amazon or, so it's a UPS truck there for a minute, dropping a package or two off and then going on its way.
As a owner of the plaza, are you comfortable with, the drive aisle?
I am, and I was sitting here thinking, if they start bringing semis in there, we're gonna have an issue. So, yeah, we're not gonna be happy about that. Typically, when, pretty much every operator within the shopping center, if they are bringing in semis, we have a loading dock in the back. So if you go behind the center, you'll see plenty of loading docks. Tenants typically have box trucks that just come up to the front door, obviously FedEx and things like that. They just pull up to the front door. There's a little bit of a challenge as an owner-operator, trying to keep people from parking trucks out in front, but it happens. But certainly, there wouldn't be tractor trailers here, and if there are, we're gonna have a conversation with them about that.
Thank you for that. And then just my other point on parking is, did the engineer have any feedback on the ADA space not being adjacent to the building?
No feedback from our village engineer on it, but our building official, who's a licensed architect and has a very keen eye to all things accessibility required, often tells us that he looks for the closest and most proximate location for ADA. There are hatched markings for the access aisle that would be a direct route from the accessible space to the building.
I mean, I'm gonna echo what Commissioner Martinez is pointing at. To park there and then cross through 2 lanes of traffic, on the drive, the drive aisles. I think that's kind of dicey. I know you have the landing out front there. I'm wondering if that should be modified
Yeah,
for
that's what
parking
I was-
adjacent, because I don't know. There's too many distracted drivers. I just think that's kind of a good eye on that. I think it's a little risky. But I mean, that's something to talk to, I guess, maybe with the village engineer too, to see if I know you said they already have some thoughts on it, but
I think if you can propose 1 or 2 by the building, I think that would kind of accommodate what we're looking for with accessibility, and it'll even get you closer to the parking requirement. I think that it was said 32 was required and 16 of those are employees. I think I'm comfortable with the 16 employees parking on the rest of the plaza area, but it would be nice to accommodate the rest on the site. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think if you can minimize that walk or whatever to that distance, and not have that going through those drives. I know that's a balance, but I think that's reasonable.
If I may, this situation actually occurs quite often in out parcels that we build, so it doesn't surprise me to see it.
Yeah.
I don't know what code specifically. I assume that if it was not allowed by code, it would have come up. We certainly.
It meets
I mean,
code.
You can look at it, the engineers can look at it, see if they can make it work, but.
Yeah, we're happy to take a stab at it.
But I think it is fairly common, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it, by the book, it doesn't meet code. I'm just saying, from a standpoint of like, reality and inducing some risk there, it'd be preferred to be next to it to lower the risk, but I'm not saying, I'm not holding your hand to the fire. I'm just, I think that's a salient point. If there's some wiggle room, I think that would be.
I mean, there's probably enough wiggle room to maybe squeeze one in. I think we'd be hard pressed to do two.
Fair enough. I mean, but like if, depending on just the traffic patterns, if you're able to get one adjacent, that could be
Yeah. We'll
very,
take a look
very.
at it. We're happy to take a look at it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Any other comments, Commissioner Martinez? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sepisi?
I think right now, this is all pretty straightforward, and, I mean, with a little minor tweaking, the ADA thing being one of them, you got the fire lanes covered, you've got everything covered. I like the plan.
Okay. Commissioner Gatto?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if we can get at least one ADA spot that's close to the building, I think that would be a good option. Other than that, everything else looks great.
Okay. Commissioner Merrick?
So, I was wondering, I thought you folks were gonna talk about the outside of the building and the stuff that was there. And I just wanted to say that, I like the cool metal stuff. Those colors look pretty cool. Actually, and of course, the brick facade part meets code, but, the other, I like the one that's potentially non-conforming, the metal stuff. It looks cool to me, and obviously, it's part of the brand. And I don't normally talk about parking, except that we should have less, but it seems clear to me that the employees would need to park away, because there's, even with the drive-throughs, the banks and outlots in and around Tinley have lots of people parking, coming, going in and going out. And I keep counting, there's only like 14 spots there. Is there, how many?
13.
There's 13? Okay, so it looks like it's probably enough, but it's probably right at the spot where that's only just enough. If you're not gonna have customers parking on the other side of traffic flows and walking across, I doubt people will park at Ross and walk over, because I've seen at other places without lots, people drive the 40 feet. Right? For real.
I
They
agree.
get into the car after getting their haircut and then drive over to Chase. It's
I
like,
agree.
really?
I heard the
But
same thing and
anyways.
thought the same thing you
Yeah.
did, so.
Anyways, so I think the parking is, for this site, it's good, but it's probably tight, right?
Yeah, Friday
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock when people are cashing checks, it's probably
So-
tight.
But
Yeah,
anyways, those are my comments.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful that do we have this on a larger site plan so you can see it? Because the parking on the top of the page,
This shows on the right, that shows what was approved
Approved, yeah.
without, so we can get kind of a larger
all right.
feel for the rows.
Yeah, and I guess what I wanted to point out is the parking to the left of the bank would really be, it's kind of that kind of faded, it's in white on here. That is not what's considered part of the bank site, but to an earlier point, people aren't going to park all the way down there and walk all the way up to Ross. That's effectively bank parking, because that's between the bank and the entry drive aisle. So there's probably another dozen spaces
I see
right
it.
there
I
that
see it.
nobody's going to
Yeah.
use except for them,
Good point.
realistically.
That's helpful.
I would probably suggest that would mostly be employee parking,
Right, right.
because they're gonna be in there
Also
8
overflow,
hours,
right?
and then you can leave the 13 spots for,
Yeah, we actually require in our leases that you have to park away from the buildings. It's hard to enforce that, but, you know, that is something that we encourage our tenants to do.
So up on the screen, I'm just showing here the site plan
Very
north
top.
to the up. It's the very top.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
on-
yeah,
on
yeah.
the Top of.
It's just
that
in white,
upper
yeah.
But
driveway.
part of the problem with how that lays out and looks is like there's two-way traffic, but actually the one heading out onto Harlem itself is further up.
more
Correct.
traffic.
Correct.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a dedicated
Okay.
that goes
Yeah.
around.
So,
Yeah.
so that solves everything.
Yeah, it's locked in, it's not,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, Commissioner Hamilton.
I don't have any questions on it.
Okay. I don't have too many comments. Everything's been, a lot of the stuff has been said. I do think like the proposed landscaping in the staff report, I wholeheartedly support that. I think those are easy gets to do, right?
Yeah, I think most of the things, if I may.
Yeah, sure, no, go
In
ahead.
the staff report are easy to get to.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. The color and the horseshoe for the bollards, I think,
It's already been fixed.
okay, that's already been fixed. The no logos on the signage, like the directional signage, we know people need to know what their bank is, but, I concur with staff's recommendation on that. And the architecture, as Commissioner Merrick brought up, the key was, you met the 75% brick, right? So, and on some, you had zero ethos, right? And then some you were a little bit over by 7 or 10% in some cases, but you met the minimum on the brick. There's a little bit of accents, and it's differently placed. So I think generally speaking, you meet the intent of that code requirement. Parking, I agree. I don't think it's an issue. I think you guys kind of talked that out. I think that's very true. I think the stacking on the third drive-through lane looks fine. I think you guys did a good job on the design overall. I think it looks nice. And I am happy to see that it is a bank and not a restaurant. I think when, roll it back to a year ago when Amazon had not been moved in yet, and I hear there's gonna be an outlet for phase 2. My mentality at the time was, we had the formal Applebee's become the Dugout, then some bandanas, and now a dispensary, and it sat for a long time. And when you had a brand-new building with no tenant, and now you want an outlet, that didn't sit well, but you got the tenant in. I'm happy that this is a bank, because I think, you're gonna need a bank, right? You may not need another barbecue place, so I think you guys did a good job with the fit. So I am excited, as you said, you're gonna bring in other businesses as well. I'm very excited, so I think this is a good plan, I think it's a good tenant. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes,
I have
Jason.
one question, just so we don't have to come back here. If they want to sneak in and change where the handicap spot is, just as we're going over it, we can condition it as that's an engineering approval, so we already do that anyway, so that's not a big deal site plan wise. Nothing would change majorly. The building might have to get shifted south a little bit, which means that island to the south might get a little smaller, which means I don't know if you're gonna get trees in there. So, in any instance where, let's say we have to move everything south 4 feet, what's more important, getting that space there or having trees?
Getting the space there.
Getting the space there?
Correct.
Could just straw pull,
Yeah.
Yeah.
getting the space next to the building
People's
is more important?
safety,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just saying, because if we
Yeah.
do kind of engineer it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait, you guys gave a waiver, and now I gotta come back, but if you're giving us that direction, we'll just move forward with that.
Just plant skinny trees. Okay.
We will try and get the trees in there, I'm just saying, I could see that as.
Okay, if that
happening.
comes to that, but good looking ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So potentially, just on the north side of the building?
I don't know what the
Yeah.
size are, so I'm just
Yeah.
asking,
Yeah.
just in case.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anyone wishing to speak from the public? I don't see any. Any commissioners have any more comments? Okay, with hearing no further questions or discussions, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Oh,
Do I, oh,
do have a question, just on the process for this.
Sure.
ADA spot, how do we go forward from here with that?
We'll handle it at a staff level.
yeah.
Just- Great.
As long as there aren't like crazy modifications to where the building is, staff has a little leeway, and if it substantially conforms to what they approve, that's why I was asking about the trees.
Yeah.
And that just, so then I have
Okay.
direction.
But we just work with you.
Yeah, it'll be planning, our building official, and our village engineer.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, good question, Andrew. So with that said, I'm going to repeat. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gatto, second by Commissioner Sepisi. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is closed. So staff, if you want to present the standards at this time?
Okay, thank you. Up on screen, I've got the standards for site plan and architecture, which don't require a response by staff, but we just list them in the report and here for reference. And then as far as special use, so these are the standards that we always use for all special uses. The first is regarding public health, safety, morals, general welfare. So staff notes the final design is a bank providing a financial service to the community and is designed in a manner that will not be an endangerment. Number two, staff finds that the outlot's been designed to enhance the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate area and is an additional capital investment to the existing plaza development and thus will not substantially diminish or impair property values. Number three, the special use will not impede the normal and orderly development of surrounding property. This is within an existing commercial development. The plaza contains 2 other outlot developments, and this will add to the commercial frontage along Harlem. Then the next 2 are regarding utilities, access roads, drainage, et cetera. So we are noting that adequate facilities have been or are being provided, and existing infrastructure is in place for the development. And then lastly, on this slide, sorry, there's one more after this. Additional or adequate measures have been made to provide ingress and egress so as to minimize traffic congestion. We noted that the adjustment of the outlot subject property and the immediate surrounding area of the lot provide for connected circulation within the plaza and sufficient stacking queues for the drive-through. Last slide, regarding being in conformance with all other parts of the code, the petitioner has indicated that the proposal will comply with all other code requirements not covered by these exceptions. And then last, regarding economic development, this outlot is an additional capital investment that improves and builds upon the existing plaza development's commercial offerings to the public and will serve as a financial service to patrons frequenting the retail and other commercial establishments in the vicinity. I have 2 motions here. The first one is for the special use for the beauty.
And do they have to spell out, can they just say per items 1, 2, and 3 of the
Yes.
staff report? Okay, so at this time, I have a motion regarding the special use substantial deviation to the PUD regarding this item.
I'd like to make a motion
Sure.
to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner, John Chudik of Burnham Nationwide Incorporated, on behalf of Richard DiPolito of Brixmore IA, Tinley Park Plaza, LLC, and Fifth Third Bank, a special use for a substantial deviation to the Tinley Park Plaza PUD with exceptions to the village zoning ordinance to allow construction of a new Fifth Third Bank with drive-through service at a proposed outlot parcel for the property located at 16061 Harlem Avenue in the B2PD Community Shopping Tinley Park Plaza District, with the conditions as noted in the staff report.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Lori, could I have a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion for item 1 is carried. Now we have a motion, second motion for the site plan architectural approval regarding this item.
So I think with this one, we would want to add that amendment about the parking space for the accessible parking. Jason, do you think an appropriate amendment would be to say something along the lines of, provided that site plan adjustment be made to allow for an accessible parking space adjacent
Yeah.
to the building?
Yeah.
Requiring village approval.
Yeah, so you could also just say, with the following conditions, size 1, 2, 3, as well as the handicap parking space discussed tonight.
Okay, so could I have a second motion regarding this item?
I make a motion to grant the petitioner, John Chudik, sorry if I said that wrong, of Burnham Nationwide, Inc., on behalf of Richard DiPolito of Brixmore IA, Tinley Park Plaza LLC, and Fifth Third Bank site plan and architectural approval to allow construction of a new Fifth Third Bank with drive-through service at a proposed outlet parcel for the property located at 16061 Harlem Avenue in the B2 PD Community Shopping, Tinley Park Plaza zoning district, with the conditions as noted in the staff report and as well as the handicap space adjacent to the building.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Lori, could I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried for item 2. This item will go to the village board Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. So Andrew and Richard get with staff on how to and where to and when to attend. It should be in this building here. And good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you very much.
And you're free to leave. With that, we'll move on to the good of the order. Staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
A couple things. Your statement of economic interest from Cook County is going to be due May 1st. Everybody should have received an email. It's a quick, well, I shouldn't say, it was quick for me. I don't own anything. So
I didn't get
it's
it.
just,
I didn't get one.
so it's going to be in your Tinley Park email.
I
No, no, they send them out to our regular emails.
They did?
Well,
They do.
Laura told me it specifically goes out to your Tinley Park. She
I got
tries to get it to everyone. If you can't find it or need it resent, ask Laura from the clerk's office.
I haven't logged in that email.
Yeah, so she'll be able to try and direct you. If not, she'll direct you to IT if she can't get you the information. So again, that's due May 1st. I'm going to have the same communication in April, unless everybody does it. So there's that. Zoning map got approved by village board this Tuesday, and then everybody take some time on Friday to cheer on Illinois at 8:45. Which ribbon cutting?
Durbin's?
Is
Is
it-
it the
is-
21st?
I didn't remember. If you knew the date, I would let them know.
Okay.
We said it last time. Was it the 25th?
I think it was the 20th.
I think Durbin's is Monday,
Yeah,
but I didn't have it off the top of my head. It's Monday or Tuesday. Anyway,
yeah.
couple ribbon cuttings next week, but
And I did mention to our marketing department, your guys' interest in being able to try to be included on ribbon cutting emails. So I know that that was something that we raised last time.
Yeah, we were invited
Yeah, we
to
used to
previous,
be,
but yeah, I know they already, T-Hands was already done. I saw the pictures with some of the, and they look great. I mean, so yeah, Durbin's, if it's Tuesday or Monday, is that,
Monday or Tuesday.
is that during the day, which is fine, that's 5 minutes away?
No, I think it's right after,
happy hour time usually.
Yes.
Should be fun.
So, yes,
That's a
I
good,
think it
that's
was
a good
originally
thing.
the
That's-
21st, it was just adjusted.
yeah,
It's good to
Yeah.
see that start coming alive. It's pretty good. That's
Mhm.
pretty fast-tracked.
it's very fun.
Yeah, very good. Okay, no other, go to the order. Okay, move on, receiving comments from the public, seeing no public here. We will move on to adjourning the meeting. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded?
Second?
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. All those in favor to close the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? No? Okay, motion carried. This meeting is adjourned at 9:34 PM Central Time. Thanks for staying, guys.
You guys all got February off, so.